Hello, and welcome to another probably very long video that no one asked for, that I'm making kind of as I procrastinate on other videos that some people have actually asked for. Hee hee ha ha. What we're doing today is looking at my YouTube diet. I spend a lot of time watching YouTube. Honestly, of all these mediums that I'm making videos for at the end of the year, YouTube is probably the one that actually occupies the most time in my life. It's just become a habit that anytime I'm kind of idle, anytime I'm like working, it's kind of the first thing I go to. When I'm going to bed at night, I often like watching YouTube in bed just as I fall asleep. So as a result, there's quite a few channels that I kind of turn to when I'm looking for this sort of content. And I wanted to just kind of go through them as a little relic of this year, as something I can come back to in future years and kind of remember what I was watching and what I was doing at the time, what was interesting to me. And it's something that hopefully can recommend you some channels that you might find interesting too. Obviously, this isn't going to be like comprehensive. As I was like trying to think of channels, I basically spent a long time just kind of like scrolling through the front page and seeing what was recommended to me. But I didn't like, do a huge, thorough self-investigation. Of course, my interest in all of these channels kind of waxes and wanes, so there's some on here that I'm not actually actively watching these days, but are, in the past, something that I obsessed over and watched every single upload. So I kind of want to just kind of cover channels that I know I had spent a lot of time with. Oh, this is another one I wanted to talk about. There's so many. There's so many. This one can go, so I've decided to do this video in a way that's like very low effort, but very high confusion, where I just opened all the channels on tabs and we're gonna just pop through them. I don't know where to put this one. I think over here maybe it's most appropriate. Okay, let's just dive in, because the longer I wait, the more channels I'll think to add, and I think I've got most of the main ones, so let's dive in. We're going to start with two channels that I've certainly spent more time watching than pretty much any other piece of media in the last year. That is Bosch and Roll and Thraben U. These guys are both friends. They've collaborated a lot in the past. I think they're on a podcast together. And each of them, on every weekday, will upload playing through a League of Magic the Gathering, usually in the legacy formats, sometimes Pauper, sometimes Modern on Bosch and Roll's channel, sometimes Pioneer, but the vast majority is legacy, which is the format that's most interesting to me. And I don't know, they just play in a nice, calm way. There's no like exaggerated reactions. It's not so aggressive in any sense. They explain their plays, they explain the lines they're taking, what other things they're considering, in a way that I find very engaging. It's just the right level of engagement that if I have this on in the background while I'm doing work or something, it almost kind of feels like I'm co-working, because I can hear someone else thinking through kind of an intellectual challenge, and I'm kind of doing the same. So these videos have been just a great part of my work at home routine. I look forward to their uploads every day. It's a nice mix of kind of unorthodox decks, new brews, seeing how well they perform in the metagame, and then just kind of piloting to high skill the most relevant players and kind of explaining why they dominate the format and how you kind of play each matchup. So really good stuff. I know there's like a million other MTG channels that do similar things. But I like these guys just because of their like nice collected tone. It just makes for really good like kind of background content, because they're not too over the top in any way, shape, or form. And also the video editing is like immaculate. There's no kind of like dead air time. They do a really good job of just cutting down to their narration and the gameplay. And most of the other channels I've found kind of fail in one or more of those regards, or they just are lower skill, and even I can notice errors. So I don't know. I feel like I'm already kind of saturated with this content, that it's like 2 hours of content every weekday, and that's enough to kind of cover all of the time in which I really want to have a video like this on. So I don't necessarily need to find other channels like this, although, if they're out there, I want to kind of like check them out too. Anyways, those are the first two. Next we have Caleb Gannon. This is someone who was kind of my first big addiction when it came to watching them play competitive Magic. I still really like their channel. I still return to it occasionally, but they mostly play draft formats, specifically like cube draft, vintage cube draft on MTGO. And I love vintage cube. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you've seen me play vintage cube probably a few times. But it's like harder to follow if you're not paying like complete attention than someone playing like Legacy, which is like an established format. So I find it's more easy for me to put a Legacy video on in the background and kind of like semi-engage with it. Rather than this, if I engage with it to that extent, I have no clue what's happening. The deck is completely different every time. The opponents are completely new decks every single time. It's just the nature of Cube. So this has kind of fallen by the wayside just in terms of like my watching habits. But this guy's like fantastic too. He actually created an algorithm for automatically editing MTGO videos, which I think is what Bosch and Roll and Thraben use to edit their videos. I might be wrong, but really, really smart guy. Working on his own game now and has like created cubes for Magic the Gathering online and stuff. Really, really good stuff. Switching genres a little bit, talking still about Magic the Gathering, but in a completely different context. This person makes little video essays about different subjects within Magic the Gathering that aren't usually totally related to competitive play. Competitive Magic is like the most interesting part of Magic to me, because I'm a huge dweeb. But I really, really do respect a lot of other aspects of the game. Like, I think the artwork is just fantastic, and the lore, and the stories behind the cards, and the long, long history that's been built up over 30 years. And I think this channel does a really good job, like, highlighting a lot of that legacy and story and stuff. Like, a video like this, I think, is a great one, where they just look at a particular card type of sagas and look at the inspiration for all the different art throughout different human cultures and stuff. I think that was the first video I watched by them that really got me into them, but everything I've watched has been really impressive. This is another kind of semi-competitive related Magic channel where this person looks at like top 10 lists of different card categories, different qualities of cards, looking at how well they've succeeded in competitive formats, and then also looks at like, I don't see any of them, but like histories of different competitive decks, how they grew and updated through different formats with new cards and stuff. He does like set reviews and stuff too. I don't usually watch those, but it's just like really nice compressed information, which I like. He just delivers so many facts about Magic that I find it kind of addictive. Switching up a little bit, this channel does similar things but looks at Pokemon cards. Pokemon I don't know anywhere near as well as Magic, so it's very fascinating. A lot of like very novel things. I've been watching through a lot of these explaining band series. I haven't gotten into these top 10s as much, but I think that'll be a lot of fun too. Pokemon is crazy. The Pokemon card game is just crazy. Like, I don't think it's quite as unhinged as Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't think I put it in this list, but there's another similar Yu-Gi-Oh! Channel that I also watch. But Pokemon has really had some very degenerate decks in its time, and it's kind of fun to learn about that history. This is a big one. Settled, who is a RuneScape player that subjects himself to various masochistic challenges as he plays RuneScape. This latest one, where he only has one inventory slot, is by far the most masochistic yet. But it's pretty fascinating stuff. I don't play RuneScape, but through watching channels like this, I've learned quite a bit about RuneScape. And just the way he plays is like really fascinating to me. Just this mix of like real creativity, coming up with like time savers, coming up with efficient routes and stuff. And then in the end, still having to subject himself to some like really brutally long and tedious grinds. There's kind of like an endurance art aspect to it. A lot of little creative side challenges too, like these RuneScape escape rooms I found really, really fun and compelling. Yeah, just a fantastic channel. In general, there is such a wealth of old school RuneScape content creators, like even within the specific genre of just documenting playing through a really weird gameplay restriction or whatever. I haven't gotten into many of them besides Settled, none of them to the extent that I have with Settled, where I've watched pretty much every video he's put out. I don't think, that Settled is necessarily the best at actually playing the game or producing content, although his production quality is really, really high. But there's just something, I don't know, really like affable about him. I just sort of like his sense of humor and the way he gets at it, whereas a lot of the other players, even though their content is interesting and they obviously have a lot of expertise at the game, I just kind of find them like more cringy or less accessible or whatever. And again, it's something where like I feel kind of saturated with watching RuneScape challenges. I'm not like necessarily seeking out more of them. It's just like a nice surprise every couple of weeks when there's a new update. But yeah, really, really good stuff. Even if you don't know anything about RuneScape and you couldn't imagine caring about it too much, as I kind of did before I started watching this, you might find it really, really enthralling as I did. This is another RuneScape channel that I watch pretty sporadically, if I just kind of get clickbaited. I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I am curious about hoarding or best way to spend my money. This person is also doing a pretty crazy challenge where they're trying to get as far as possible while staying just in the Grand Exchange, which is like kind of the RuneScape buy and sell economy center. How much progress can you make in the game just by like buying and selling and manipulating items just in your inventory? Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. I like this guy's kind of general disposition. Pretty like fact driven, but a little lighthearted too. Nothing too obnoxious. Yeah, pretty neat. I think there's another RuneScape channel that I planned on talking about, but maybe I put it in the wrong section. This is a channel I found relatively recently, but I've been really, really enjoying since then. I will occasionally watch the Mario Maker videos, just kind of randomly, but the big appeal is the beating every N64 game challenge. I love this so much. Every week on Friday, he puts out one of these. He gives a really nice, concise breakdown of what the game is like. It's very well edited with footage of his stream as he actually played through the entire game. His sense of humor is just like very strange and endearing. He's just a very, I say this in full sincerity, like wholesome person who just loves games and wants to beat every single N64 game. And he's having a horrible time. Like occasionally he'll find a pretty brilliant game that he wouldn't have played otherwise, like Sin and Punishment, and just has a fantastic time. But just as often he's playing a F1 racing game for like 60 hours. There's just a really good sense of like endurance art type suffering in this, I think. There was a run a little bit ago where he got first off like Super Robot Wars, which is this gigantic Japanese only TRPG that he had to play with like a machine translated guide that took him like 100 hours or something ridiculous. And then right after that he gets an extremely long Mahjong game, the Game of Life in Japanese, and then a Tamagotchi Game of Life type game in Japanese, and then another Mahjong game. So this is like collectively like 200 hours of just suffering through bizarre Japanese games or learning how to play Mahjong. Just, I don't know, it's pretty beautiful. I'm really looking forward to seeing more. This challenge is going to run for like years from now. He's roughly a quarter through. So if you imagine that he's going to be able to put out a game a week for the next 200 weeks, where we've got 4 more years of N64 content, roughly. Beautiful. Northern Lion, I watched this with my boyfriend. I first learned about this guy because he does like cryptic crosswords and other very nerdy hobbies on stream. Plays Sporical quizzes. I just really admire how much he sticks to the stuff that he really enjoys and doesn't seem to just kind of go after popular games for streamers. And now he has a very sizable audience. This is probably one of the most subscribed people we're going to be talking about. While, you know, still just playing Sporical quizzes, Switch Golf, Super Auto Pets, some Marvel TRPG that my boyfriend said looks really stupid. Really entertaining guy. I don't know. I think he's just so cantankerous and grumpy, but just really has a very similar taste to me, I think, in terms of what's actually like fun in video games. I don't watch him all that often, but it's nice to just kind of throw on some highlights from him as a way to just pass the time with background noise. This is a very lovely channel, The Gaming Historian. It is indeed high quality video game documentaries. My favorite are the ones where he just gets into the history of the main Mario games and other kind of flagship Nintendo titles. All of them are like so iconic, are so kind of entrenched in my understanding of the world that it feels like they've always been there. And trying to kind of think about how they were actually made, how they were developed and conceived, promoted, received in those first weeks. It just has such a mystique to it, such an aura of, it's almost impossible to imagine. And just the way he breaks down all of these such crucial moments into kind of the mundanity, into the like little conversations they had in offices in Nintendo of Japan, just little insights and breakthroughs they made while programming it, is really, really beautiful to me. And then the moments near the end where they start talking about the legacy of these games and how they were received, and I tear up almost every time. I remember just bawling in watching this Mario World one, just because, I don't know, it's just such a beautiful game, and they really capture like how amazing it is. I don't know. It's great. I want to watch more of this. There's a lot of them I haven't watched yet. I'm just kind of savoring them and putting them on when I'm in that mood to feel a lot of awe. Speaking of awe, here is one of my absolute favorite channels on all of YouTube, Bismuth, who just recently finished an amazing achievement documenting to extreme detail the entirety of the A button challenge. Now, if you don't know about the Mario 64 A button challenge, it's one of my favorite things in the entire world. It's something I followed for a long, long time now, before Pan and Koic was even involved, if that means anything to any of you. The goal is simply to beat Mario 64 and collect as many stars as possible while pressing the A button, which of course makes Mario jump, as few times as possible. And at first this was just kind of like tricky maneuvering and unorthodox kind of routes and stuff, and then became, as you can see here, something involving parallel universes and quantum mechanics and other things that you may think these names are very facetious and silly, but actually really understate just how complex and kind of beautifully barely possible these things are. The amount of brain power that has gone into this challenge vastly exceeds anything else I've seen in any sort of video game challenge. It's just really, really beautiful stuff, and Bismuth does an amazing job at showing you just how brilliant and challenging all of this stuff is. He's also done a lot of other videos, which I also think are great, on other Nintendo game speedruns and things like that. I think his production style is like absolutely top notch. He's very inspired by another channel we're going to look at called 3 Blue 1 Brown, but able to really make these very complex concepts so visual, so immediately graspable just through diagrams, through examples, through representation. His charming little quirks and his sense of humor and stuff just add such like a friendly touch to it, even though the content itself is so elaborate. I cannot praise this channel enough. I return to these videos so often as just a source of comfort or a distraction, or just something that can put me in a really engaged but happy state of mind. Really, really wonderful stuff. Watch this 5.5-hour video, please. You will not be disappointed. This is another similar video, or channel, sorry, that gets even deeper into the minutia of games. Looking specifically at like very old Nintendo games and stuff, and kind of looking at like a really glitchy thing and then breaking down exactly how it's working on the level of like the game's ROM. So it's quite heavy. It's something you really have to focus on to follow. But I do really enjoy it, and I think the person running it is a really powerful human being. I'm trying to find... So, for a very good example of the sort of thing he does is like, okay, let's look at Pokemon sprites. How are they actually stored on the cartridge? How are they then decoded and represented graphically? Where are the actual like pixel mappings of the Pokemon stored and how? And then based on that, how can we figure out why Missing No looks the way it does? And what other errors complicate the rendering of Missing No? Missing No, if you don't know, is a very famous glitch Pokemon that you can encounter in the first generation. And then having figured out, just reverse engineering the entire process of compressing and decompressing Pokemon sprites. Is it in here?
In the first video, of binary digits that has a terminator. 11110.
Where is it? Where is it? Live? Yeah! So,
From Tiny Dave
to prove that he had figured this out,
Remember,
he decided to manually decompress a sprite, reading just the chunk of binary code that exists in the Pokemon ROM, and then on this whiteboard, bit by bit, doing the work that the Game Boy does over a period of 4.5 hours, raising money for charity to draw Caterpie. That's awesome! That's so awesome. I love this guy. Okay. This is another kind of speedrun documentary channel. This one has a very interesting format where they just work with a particular like subject matter expert. So, you know, a Mario 64 expert, a Mario Odyssey expert, Breath of the Wild expert, whatever, to just help them produce a really high quality documentary of one aspect of their community or scene or history or whatever. Some of them are more interesting than others, like the cheating stuff. It kind of feels like it's trying to bait views, but whatever. They really do a good job breaking down the details of these tricks and glitches and their histories. And they focus on some kind of niche stuff that I think are really, really fascinating, but probably would have gone underappreciated. Like the low percent run for Twilight Princess that has some really bizarre strategies. The low percent, or the highest percent no progress Sunshine run. This one talking about can you actually beat Pokemon without encountering a glitch is really fun. Yeah, great channel. I wish they uploaded more often. It's very, very sporadic, but good stuff. This is maybe the most famous of all speedrunning channels. Certainly the most subscribed channel we've seen so far. I generally like these guys, this guy's work, but I don't like absolutely love it. I think it's very compelling the way he illustrates, you know, the rivalries and the successive techniques and kind of the miraculous days and the miraculous runs and stuff. He has a really good storytelling flair for that. But it doesn't really get into the really interesting mechanical parts of the game too deeply. Those are somewhat glossed over, which is the stuff that like really, really fascinates me. It's more about like kind of the people and the community and stuff, which is great too. So I still do watch like every video this channel uploads, but not with as much fascination or eagerness to return as I do something like Lowest Percent or Bismuth. But yeah, good stuff. Now we're going to get into some channels about Melee. Of course, my boy Mango. I watch his stream highlights pretty much every day, every time he uploads them. I know there's like tons of top players that stream, and I know a lot of them upload stream highlights, and I like a lot of top players, like their personalities and their streaming personalities, and even their gameplay and the way they play is entertaining. But none of them match Mango, and I feel, again, kind of satiated and saturated by just watching Mango videos as often as I can. I don't really feel like I need to seek out other people's highlights and stuff. Just something about how bizarrely abrasive he is. He's quite obnoxious. I find that like really entertaining. And he's always very concisely getting at like I don't know, like discourse around matchups and metagames and or like tournament controversies or whatever. I find even if I don't always agree with his takes, he presents them in such like a concise, entertaining way that I really kind of enjoy keeping my keeping my hand on the pulse of the Melee community via Mango highlights. Really fun stuff. The only downside is that he keeps putting friggin' crypto ads in his videos because of stupid Cloud9 partnership with blockchain.com. When is it gonna die? We're hearing its death gasps now as the crypto market finally has all of the air compressed out of it by the overwhelming weight of common sense, but it's not quite over yet. This is another Melee channel that I started watching recently. They haven't been uploading content for long, but it's already been really good. So Ranked Melee Netplay is out now, and has just been an absolute gold mine for content, and content like amalgamation and stuff. Just so many funny clip highlights from people's streams, people getting frustrated, people having funny matchups, funny encounters between known players. All sorts of good stuff. This person's doing a really great job highlighting it. Looking forward to more. It seems like they're uploading fairly regularly these ranked highlights, so I'm loving it. This is a Melee combo video channel that I just really like. I think they do an awesome job. I don't know, sick combos, good taste in music. Their biggest achievement is definitely the And Friends 2, an hour-long compilation of like 16 different players. It's like, you can kind of tell what people's tastes in Melee are by how they make combo videos, what they choose to highlight, what they find interesting. And this person's taste really aligns with mine, so phenomenal. This is another Melee kind of video essay channel. They started off making like really sweet combo videos, but then moved more on to highlighting just weird mechanical quirks and oddities, or kind of explaining deeper something that we're all familiar with but have never really thought about in detail, like how they work. Really top-notch like editing and production and stuff. Just like very creative, very educational. If we highlight any of these and just look at the preview, okay, well that one's just depressing. But like, look, showing the frames off, showing just very good at showing and telling, you know, like illustrating everything they're talking about in a very easy to grasp way. This is the first of a couple Pokemon channels we're gonna look at. This guy makes, at first, what really hooked me on this channel were just like really short question-answer type videos. Why was Shedinja banned in hacked Pokemon? Well, that one's obvious, but why was this Pokemon banned? Well, I don't know. If I wanted to know before this channel, I would have had to go to Smogon and read through 80 pages of people debating on a forum. Whereas now I can just watch like a short 5-ish minute video. And, you know, the real thing is that I wouldn't have even thought to ask those questions. But this person really does a great job highlighting interesting bans, bizarre, counterintuitive things. Why does this Pokemon that you think is meh actually need to get out of the format? Now they're kind of doing longer, more extensive things, focusing more on like commentary on competitive play. I haven't been watching those as much, but whenever I do, I'm still just really impressed by their depth of explanation. And again, it's like not so much, wow, such amazing production, but they just do a really good job finding pertinent clips and stuff, so you can see what everything they're talking about in action. This is a channel I found pretty recently that's just absolutely awesome. I started watching this RBY Uber's metagame video on a whim, and it's just amazing. The production quality is very memey, very silly, but really well executed. The topics covered are like really fascinated. It's very like opinionated, not just in terms of, oh, I think this is good or bad, or this is actually really fun, or oh god, this is so degenerate, I wish it wasn't a thing. A lot of kind of interesting little challenge videos and stuff. I haven't watched those so much, but they're like match highlights. Really entertaining, just really bizarre sense of humor that I enjoy. Good stuff. This is another competitive Pokemon channel. This one is sort of like Freeze Eye in that they look at Shoot, I just remembered another channel I wanted to talk about. I'm gonna look this one up because this one's really cool. Hee-haw. Okay. We'll get to this next. Oh, there's so many. This video barely scratches the surface, but it's something. Maybe I'll try to do these more regularly and highlight more channels, but whatever. Do you remember way back in the day I was doing a series where I looked through my entire YouTube subscriptions on my previous channel where I had like 4,000 subscribed channels? That was fun, but that was crazy. This version of it feels a little more reasonable, but it can't be as comprehensive, unfortunately. Anyways, yeah, this one sort of like Freeze Eye kind of just asks a question and then explains in great detail the answer. I don't watch these as often just because, I don't know, like, how good was Octillery actually? Kind of mid. I think it got that weird ability. It's called like Unstable or something, where it just randomly ups one of your stats by 2 points and decreases one by another, and then you can proc getting added evasion or something. Did Octillery get that? I think Octillery got that. That ability was broken, and then I think that ability was banned. So it's kind of like, I already kind of feel like I have a sense, and then I'm not like super compelled to watch it because I don't think I'm necessarily going to learn something interesting. But they're very well made, and again, like, the production quality is high. You get to see all the things they're talking about in action. And it is, like, pretty interesting, really, even if I think I know. I don't always know. So yeah, I wanted to talk about this channel because I just thought of it. The big series I really like on this is soft lock picking, where they set up, like, really elaborate, very clever ways to almost completely break your Pokemon save file, putting it in a totally unrecoverable position. But then they reveal that there is some extremely unlikely kind of golden thread to success where you have to get impossibly lucky for 179 years, but you could conceivably recover from this position. I think it's just really clever, really compelling, really fascinating. The way they narrate it is like bizarrely dramatic. It almost feels like it's like some sort of bizarre confinement fetish manifesting itself this way. But I've actually watched this person do a few other things too. They had a series on like Yume Nikki and other kind of like cult games that they liked. And I thought those were really well done too. So I don't know, just a very compellingly strange person. Ooh, this is the new high score for most subscribed channel. I'm happy. I'm surprised and I'm happy that this channel is so popular, because it is quite complex. So this is just math explainers looking at either like one specific type of problem or something, or a long series that go into the fundamentals of calculus or linalge. Really amazing production. I think my favorite production of any YouTube channel ever. Just beautiful illustrations and visual proofs that sometimes will just kind of take your breath away in their simplicity. All sorts of really unintuitive stuff that by the end of the video just feels so beautifully simple. I think the one that I most often show people to get into it is this blocks colliding counting pi, which then the proof is actually not really that complex, and I think kind of sets up how good this guy is at actually teaching you some really advanced stuff. I've rewatched a lot of these many times, again, just as something that's both compelling and soothing, something that I can just sink myself into and not worry about anything else for quite a long time. I know there's other math channels. I watch them occasionally if it seems like the subject is interesting, but none of them are as good. None of them are consistently so beautiful and so immersive and so educational. Like, I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. I don't do the rigor part of this work. I'm not going to sit here and work through a textbook on one of these subjects having learned about it in one of these videos. It's not going to get me there. But I really do feel like by the end of the video, like, oh, I understand this. Oh, I understand why people do this and how it works. and it's just such a satisfying feeling to get there. So good. Maybe my favorite channel on all of YouTube. It's hard to say, but definitely up there. Now for something completely different. I don't know why I put this here in this ordering. Again, the tabs are so small, and I was just kind of like vaguely dragging them around. But this is our boy LABEAST. LABEAST here. He does bizarre eating challenges and other challenges, and basically is one of our greatest living endurance artists, pushing his body to the limit in every way, shape, and form. I gotta be in the right mood to watch these because sometimes they are very disturbing, but he as a person is just so inspirational and compelling and charming and bizarre and funny that I'd watch him do just about anything. And then it's not always like these extreme body self-harm things. Sometimes he just goes out metal detecting. Just because he likes metal detecting. Sometimes he goes running for like a long time. Time to put the most bitter compound on my favorite food. Great stuff. What a legend. This is Two Set Violin. This is a channel I was like obsessed with for a few months a while ago, like actually a couple years ago now. I haven't followed them as closely since then, but I really like their content. Is this a new high score? Or is 3 blue, 1 brown still winning? I can't remember. Anyways, they're just these two very, very talented professional violinists that make a variety of kind of shitposty content. A lot of them are like really memey and stuff. A lot of them are just kind of like silly reaction videos, cringing to mainstream conceptions of classical music and violin prodigies and stuff. They make their own original music. They do concerts. I really liked stuff. They did these games of try to guess the country I'm referring to by just playing violin. Like just anything you can think of that has to do with the violin. Going back and joining a beginner's course to see what that's like. Testing out Stradivarius, collaborating with like the highest level violin players in the world. Looking at other instruments. It's such a good channel. They just do everything, and they're so charming and so funny and so attractive. And I don't know. I just got like really, really into it to the extent that it was for the first time, like I think almost like parasocial, that I started falling into the pit of just like being so enamored with these guys that I was like drifting out of the real world a little bit, which is no good. But yeah, really good stuff. I think my absolute favorite are them reviewing like really amazing performances and then attempting to, with like pretty minimal practice, copy them and play the same pieces, and of course failing miserably. I think it's just such a great way to learn to appreciate what's so amazing about high-level play by seeing just those gulfs and those gaps and hearing them explain what's so challenging. It just really ups your appreciation very quickly, which is really what I want out of this as someone who has no aspirations to actually learn to play myself. Next in this kind of like music-related section, we have Fantano. Honestly, I don't watch the main channel, the Needle Drop, very often, but I do find myself coming and getting baited, I don't know. I just can't help but watch a lot of these types of videos, like ranking songs, talking about stuff he doesn't like, these let's argue ones where he's just responding to takes. It's just such like immediate digestible content. Normally, you know, I'm not going on YouTube to learn about music. There's other places that are much more interesting and much more aligned with my tastes. In general, maybe there are channels out there that I would be like, wow, this guy is just like right in sync with me, but whatever. But the more like shitposty stuff around music, I can get into that. That's a lot of fun. This is the only actual like music uploading channel I think I've featured here. This is the only one that I just kind of by default watch everything they put out. There's other like record labels and stuff that sometimes I'll check out. that'll have music I like. But this one, whoa, 10-year, wow. I don't know. I just really like the way this guy makes videos, and I like a lot of the artists he features. Yeah, this is definitely the high score. I don't think this is gonna get beaten. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff. This video especially, I just love so much. Please go watch it. Yeah, we're definitely in like the mainstream normie YouTube section a little bit now. This guy is like a very much YouTuber type YouTuber. I got into him because some friends of mine like him, and I do find him like really entertaining. I was in hysterics at points of this movie. But yeah, it's like the subject matter is usually stuff that I wouldn't have known or cared about otherwise, like very mainstream discourse and drama and stuff. Generally, it's like a pretty surface level exploration of them, but I think he's very funny and charming, so I watch it anyways. Yeah, I don't know. Good stuff. It's what you would expect. Good background entertainment. RedLetterMedia, I assume a lot of people know this channel. Which is kind of weird that I would assume people know this channel, which has 1.4 million subscribers. And not Curtis Connor, who has 4 million subscribers. I don't know. It's just my, I guess, assumptions I'm making about my audience. But these guys review movies. They have several recurring series, which are kind of different ways about talking about movies. Best of the worst. They watch a bunch of kind of cruddy B movies and then talk about what they liked and didn't like. Very fascinating, very funny. The review is usually looking at something in a lot of depth, often something that they like. Sometimes they get people that were actually involved in the original movie to come on and discuss it, which is a lot of fun. And then Half in the Bag, where they look at new movies, usually with a pretty critical eye, which can be really entertaining, really fascinating, with these ongoing storylines with depicted in sketches at the start and the end. They're most famous for their Plinkett reviews, which were these super in-depth Star Wars reviews. But they do a lot of really great stuff, a really big variety of content now that I'm kind of trying to break it down. This video that came out recently is a total departure from almost anything else they've done. It's kind of shot in like a documentary style format, and they're just investigating the phenomenon of VHS. It's basically just a scam where now people are trying to convince each other that sealed copies of old movies, even extremely popular movies of which there's millions of copies in circulation, are actually worth tens of thousands of dollars, and it's all just a scam to kind of inflate and prop up this market in the same way that they did with retro video games a few years ago with the Mario 64 mint in box sells for $1.2 million. Everyone involved in the story is a moron, except for the one person who's getting rich. They're just evil. So now the same thing's happening to the VHS, and they just do a really interesting job of just breaking it down, and it's a really beautiful, nostalgic video. I want to watch this too. Good stuff. Great channel. Probably in my like top 10 favorites. I'm always excited when I see they upload, and I often return to them. Just as a fun, comfy, laughy watch. Here's something completely different. In the last like couple months, I've formed a very strange addiction to watching downfall videos, is what I call them. This is the number one for me. This guy will just kind of look at a famous YouTuber or other content creator or like internet person, and just in brutal detail break down where things went wrong, their controversies, their moments where they alienated themselves with fans. Sometimes they look more generally at a community and talk about some absolute horrible bad apples within that community. I have no explanation for why I'm so addicted to watching these. I don't know. I don't really think this guy has like the best take often in terms of analyzing like why these things happened. And maybe that's part of the addiction, is that I feel like I can actually kind of better understand the societal forces at play than he can, and that's kind of engaging. At the same time, it's like a lot of these people I just know nothing about, and it's kind of fascinating to go from maybe the vaguest associations or total ignorance to seeing, oh yeah, this guy was actually like a big deal. Like they had a huge audience and huge amounts of fans and were big influences on the rest of their community, to, oh crap, it turns out they were like a horrible person for reasons X, Y, and Z. It's just such like a little nugget of narrative that's so digestible, so easily parsable. Again, this is stuff I have on in the background while I'm working pretty often, so I want something that I don't have to have total engagement with, but is just kind of like pushing me forward to not switch activities and get distracted. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's it's pretty fun stuff. I don't know why in the world I chose the word fun when a lot of this subject matter is like really distressing or depressing or just otherwise bad, but I mean, it is what it is. Good times, and there's such a backlog that I haven't even dove into yet. I've just been watching new stuff uploaded. This was like the gateway drug for Turkey Tom, this guy Sunny V2, who uploads much shorter but similar documentaries looking at the downfall of famous YouTubers and stuff. They've been expanding a little more, looking at stuff like, why does everyone hate Planet Fitness? I didn't know anything about that. That was pretty fascinating. Again, it's not like the most insightful analysis into like the causality here, which again is kind of compelling to me because I like to think, okay, but like, why was this person actually radicalized? And like, what is the ideology behind the choices here and stuff like that? But yeah, I don't know. I'll watch all of these too. It's addictive, for better or worse. This is another video essayist person. This one, again, kind of on like internet drama, internet happenings, but not quite like downfalls. More kind of looking at the depths of like kind of Tumblr-born communities, shipping dynamics, ancient discourse from decades ago on who ought to be shipped with who, but really fascinating stuff that I otherwise would not have learned about at all. Like, this one had me on the edge of my seat. Figuratively speaking, I was probably relaxing on the couch, but just seeing the depths with which people bought into the idea of Sherlock Holmes, John Watson being a canonical couple in the new BBC Sherlock Holmes series, and how much they were disappointed and how insane they went afterwards trying to prove to themselves it was still possible. Really, really fascinating. I just kind of like her general disposition in making these. She's very cheery and engaging and has a lot of fun with it. The big criticism of her videos is that they're very, very long and kind of repetitive, that she reiterates the same point many times. But again, as someone who likes to have this stuff on while I'm working or while I'm doing other tasks, I actually kind of like that because I can kind of engage with it just as much as I want to and not really feel like I'm lost or I'm missing out on something important. Yeah, really good stuff. This is a channel by the person who's Sarah Zed's co-writer. She has similar video essays. Sometimes she goes even longer. Where's the really long? Oh yeah, this one's like 2 hours. I think I watched all of these. They're again like just really thoroughly iterating on these internet drama topics in a way that's just the right level of engaging for me. I like that she does some more niche stuff. Like, I never would have known about this bizarre dollar store game show. And she has really good analysis too. Like, I think when she really dives into these kind of like ideological causality that results in some of this stuff existing, she does so in a way that I don't find disagreeable, that I actually find compelling and convincing, which is rare. Most of these video essay channels, I'm like, okay, this subject matter is interesting, but I have different takes than you. This is another video essay type person who is very, very obsessive and really dives into stuff. Recently putting out this nearly 4-hour long video on a failed theme park and all the weird iterations and roller coasters that it went through. Not literal roller coasters, unfortunately. But yeah, just generally speaking, their willingness to dive into any given subject is pretty unparalleled. Again, I find myself pretty compelled by their analysis and stuff, and its subject matters that I wouldn't have known much about otherwise. She's just a really like kind of dorky person, as I'm sure she's the first to admit, and the sort of stuff that gets her really excited and really compels her to research something and to dive into something is so out of the norm, is so like not what I would on the surface level find interesting, that it becomes really, really fascinating to me to like suddenly be pulled into the very, very depths of a subject that otherwise I would have kind of glanced at from 10 feet away. Great stuff. I wish she would upload more, but I can understand why there's big gaps when she's putting out such long videos. This is another video essayist who looks pretty much exclusively at The Simpsons, and does like really good like kind of both longitudinal looks at The Simpsons, like kind of taking a specific character like Miss Hoover and iterating through all of her major appearances, all of the changes in her characterization, kind of speculating, okay, why did she change from this sort of character to this sort of character? What kind of roles and jokes have they been using her for? It's really in-depth, fascinating stuff. And they're one of the few people who love The Simpsons who are also okay with like the newer Simpsons. Of course, you know, they're not going to praise the new Simpsons as much as the old Simpsons. They're not crazy. But there's someone who still sees a lot of value in what's happening now and still kind of wants to analyze, is it good, is it bad, what's working, what's not, what directions can they go from here. So that's really fascinating too, because I would not have known about any of this new Simpsons stuff otherwise. It just is not something I'm going to prioritize seeking out. But yeah, really good stuff. Very thorough, going like season by season, ranking episodes, going character by character, making these histories. I want to see more. I can't wait to see more. All right, we're nearing the end here. I'm feeling like this was so inadequate. There's so many other channels that I'm thinking of that I want to talk about, but we're almost at an hour. So this I think we'll have to do for now. This is an excellent channel doing kind of strange single subject documentaries, starting with like internet stuff, internet oddities, internet cults, drama, things like that, but then moving into kind of more real world things, incidents like the man who lived in an airport for 18 years who passed away recently, and really kind of looking at the stories behind the stories and doing a lot of research synthesis and really bringing to light, I think, a lot of beautiful, compelling, strange stories that otherwise I would have never even heard one thing about. I really love this channel. A lot of the aesthetics, and she kind of does one of those kind of whispery, creepypasta voices. It would lead you to think, oh, this is going to be like a creep you out type channel. But it's not. It really kind of focuses on the beauty of eccentricity and why people would go to these lengths, why people would make these projects, really trying to empathize with them, even if they made some pretty terrible decisions, and try to empathize with people that got caught up in them and kind of bringing about, well, wouldn't this be a beautiful dream? Wouldn't this be something... Not all the time. This one's just about internet bullying, but whatever. Really, really cool channel. Again, I wish there was more, but I'm happy with the amount of work they put into each video. This is a really, really lovely channel that actually just uploaded something recently that I haven't finished watching yet, so that's exciting. I'll return to that at some point. But they just make miniatures, and they're so talented and so creative, so inspired in making these miniatures. No one else I've seen comes close to this level of skill. It's such peaceful, beautiful videos, like ASMR adjacent, just soft, gentle music, hearing the natural sounds of processing these things and making them. I love it so much. Absolutely enchanting. I return to these videos often. They're great. They're amazing. I can't I can't praise them enough. Can't wait to watch more of this. Next we'll look at, I guess, only two food channels. I am quite into like food YouTube in general, but it's like a very waxing and waning type interest where for a little while I'll be obsessed with watching every food related channel I can find and just devouring them, plunging into them, whatever. But I think it kind of just accompanies like my eating habits in general. And I'm in a position right now where I'm like really not cooking much, which isn't good, but it is where it is. And because of that, I don't find watching like cooking channels as engaging right now because it's kind of more like, I don't know, it just kind of feels like pressure and like, geez, I'm really slacking, aren't I? That kind of feeling. But this guy I consistently still have been returning to because with him, it's just as much about the adventure and the experience of like cooking and processing as it is like the actual steps that I could conceivably take as well. He's living the outdoor chef life. It's just as it says on the tin. He goes out into the kayak, he goes to the river, he fishes, he catches, he forages, he comes up with just the most delicious looking ingredients you can imagine. He fully butchers them right on camera, which I find just super fascinating and compelling. And then he turns them into just god tier meals. Yeah, he's great. There's a lot of other food channels that I would kind of like to talk about, but just because I haven't been as into it recently, I just can't, they just don't come to mind readily. A few other that are quite similar to this about like processing and catching fish and stuff like that too. But yeah, he's great. Check him out. This is another food channel that they make like a lot of really interesting food videos. Some really nice practical ones on how to make, how to fix dessert, how to avoid common errors and making different baked goods and stuff. Really, really neat stuff. My favorites are the debunking videos where they watch channels like 5 Minute Crafts or like cooking hack TikToks and discuss why they don't work and why they're sometimes like really dangerous. Just like a really fun variety of food related videos on here. Definitely a channel I would recommend checking out even if you're not that into food content. It's just kind of fascinating. All right, and our final channel. Again, I feel like there's so much more that I should have covered, but we had a nice solid hour of looking at channels that I like, and hopefully that was fun, if not completely representative of everything. This last one I've saved for a reason, though. It's Fulcrum. Fulcrum, come in! Oh, man. This channel has annihilated my brain more than any other, hands down. This guy, what he does, he wanders around vaping and otherwise consuming drugs and marijuana. And why am I trying to explain it? If you're not Yodi family, then get out. That's it.